The last plane carrying Americans out of Afghanistan has departed that nation on the same day. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that some Americans are still deciding whether or not to leave Afghanistan.
American citizens who may not have decided to leave. That is their right to determine when they want to leave.
Psaki says more than 120,000 people have been safely evacuated out of Afghanistan.
We have to date evacuated more than 120,000 people.
And that includes more than 6,000 Americans. This after 13 U.S. service members died in a suicide bombing in Afghanistan on Thursday.
These 13 individuals sacrificed their lives to save tens of thousands of people. And that is something that should be honored.
The names of the U.S. service members killed in Afghanistan were released over the weekend as former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was preparing for a speech. So she got pretty emotional when she decided to read their names in that speech.
Riley McCollum, age 20, from Bondurant, Wyoming. He was a Marine. He was a newlywed, and his child will be here in 3 weeks. Jared Schmidt, age 20, St. Charles County, Missouri. He was a Marine, and his dad found out at 2:40 a.m. that his son was gone. Hunter Lopez, 22. He was a Marine and he wanted to be a sheriff deputy.
Now, the U.S. responded by doing a couple of drone strikes, one on Friday and then one on Sunday.
And the president is regularly briefed, but he has directed them to go after and to kill these ISIS terrorists who have taken the lives of the men and women serving our country.
According to Reuters, on Friday, the U.S. military launched a drone strike that it said targeted ISIS-K militants east of Kabul, killing 2 of the group's planners and wounding a 3rd.
Killed 2 ISIS terrorists just last week.
Then on Sunday, a drone strike on an armored vehicle. U.S. drone strike destroys Islamic State car bomb in Kabul, officials say. American forces launched a drone strike in Kabul on Sunday that killed a suicide car bomber suspected of preparing to attack the airport, U.S. officials said, as the United States nears the end of its military presence in the Afghan capital. The word is that that explosion when they struck that armored vehicle with all the explosives that were in the vehicle, that some of the explosion went so far as to kill innocent children who were nearby.
There were explosives in this vehicle that could have led to additional damage. There's an investigation to determine how this happened.
Now, I want to get to an exclusive interview I had with Congressman Louie Gohmert, who has spoken and met with Afghan leaders over the years. He took his seat in Congress, Texas 1st District, back in 2005, and has dealt a lot with Middle Eastern issues. And he had a very interesting perspective on the Afghan situation, having met many times with the leaders there. So take a listen to what he told me he believes went wrong to begin with. And you've met with Afghanistan's leaders over the years.
Yeah.
So what went wrong in Afghanistan?
I think the big mistake early on was after the Taliban was totally routed, totally defeated, the question was asked, now what government do we give them? When we should have taken the position, look, you get whatever kind of government you want, but if you have another one take over that wants to hurt America, we'll come back and wipe them out again. But that was done with only about 300 special operations guys from the U.S., and the rest, they were Northern Alliance. These were tribal groups from the northern part of Afghanistan. And they were tough, and they were, some of them were incredible horseback riders. And we provided them weapons, and we provided them aerial support. And then they whipped the Taliban totally, and not a single American life was lost. That was between October of 2001 and February of 2002. And then that's when the question, what kind of government should we give them? And there was a debate, and unfortunately, the one that won the debate was let's give them a strong centralized governor, or president rather, who appoints the governors, appoints every governor, appoints every mayor, appoints every police chief, which normally means kind of like Roman days. If you want to be governor or mayor, you got to give a bunch of money, and that's the corruption that developed. And so when people are reading, I'm hearing people say, well, gee, I saw where the Afghan people have no faith in their provinces or their city governments. They don't have any faith. Well, no, a lot of those people that were governors or mayors, they weren't even from the place they were appointed to rule over, basically. And so that's no way to do. And I was hearing on the radio today people talking about, well, that country couldn't make a democracy or a Republican form of government work. Well, they didn't have the chance because of the corruption at the top between Karzai and then Ghani. And so, yeah, if you appoint somebody to be governor or mayor that's not from that place where they're going to be governor, well, the first sign of trouble, they're out of there. And that's what has happened. So what should have happened is what these Northern Alliance, our former Northern Alliance allies, what they have been begging, I've been meeting with them for years, and they have said, look, you can't stay in Afghanistan indefinitely. You're going to have to pull out at some point. And when you do, we'll be fine as long as you leave us some weapons, because we confiscated all the weapons from our allies after the Taliban was defeated. They're over there without weapons. And now the Taliban's got all these weapons, and that's why I've been begging the Biden administration, look, there are a lot of weapons, and this is what I've heard. I haven't had direct contact so that the Taliban, with our new technology, they can't know who's getting calls from the United States. So I haven't contacted Saleh directly. Masood, the son of the Lion of Panjshir, there are others there. But they're saying, look, you've got weapons at the airport that are still under American control. Airlift them to us. We're in Panjshir, we're in that valley up there. Airlift them to us, and that way we'll have weapons. You leave, we'll fight our way back and whip the Taliban again. But the other thing is we're going to have to destroy any weapons that don't go to those allies in Panjshir. We cannot leave them in the hands of the Taliban, because as these other tribal leaders have said for years, if you do that, Taliban will take over, they'll hit America harder than they ever did on 9/11, and there will be nobody left in our country to help you next time.
And the Taliban has already grabbed some of those weapons, right?
They have.
Today, a reporter asked Jen Psaki 3 times if Western interests were more at risk now that the Taliban is armed with $85 billion worth of America's most high-tech military equipment. She kind of dodged that question each time, but basically said, look, it was never America's intention for this military weaponry to end up in the hands of the Taliban. She didn't expect that the president of Afghanistan would be a coward and run and leave the equipment for the Taliban to take over.
We had to make an assessment several weeks ago about whether we provide materials to the Afghan National Security Forces so that they could fight the fight. Obviously, they decided not to fight or not. And we made the decision to provide them with that equipment and the material.
Congressman Louie Gohmert disagrees and said, look, they knew this was going to happen.
And that was, I'm assuming, left for Afghanistan to protect and defend itself.
Supposedly, yes.
But then the president ends up being a
But
coward.
they knew the Taliban was going to take that over. There was just, I don't know who's doing the thinking. I don't know if anybody in this administration is doing the thinking. But it's time for somebody to start, because there are 13 Americans dead because of their stupidity, and there's going to be a lot more Americans that die because of them. So hopefully somebody will wake up. They'll listen to those of us that understand a little more about Afghanistan. Unfortunately, Khalilzad, he has been saying since the Bush administration, through the Obama administration, through the Trump administration, through the Biden administration, oh yeah, I can negotiate with the Taliban for you. Let me negotiate with the Taliban for you. And in my opinion, that was a huge mistake. He wanted to be president at one point, maybe he still does, but we should have been equipping, helping our allies in the country, and not negotiating with the Taliban.
In regards to the Americans left in Afghanistan when the Biden administration pulled out, were they fully informed of the risks of staying? Do you know whether they knew whether they should be leaving with the rest of the troops?
People knew that if we pull out, and during those 11 days when the Taliban took over, they knew they're going to die if they stay. And let me tell you, this is it's similar to what happened in Yemen during the Biden-Obama administration. The Houthi rebels came in, they took the capital, Sinai, and I heard from a constituent, and I was able to call him on his cell phone. He and 3 other Americans could not get to the embassy. It was surrounded by Houthi rebels. And so I kept begging Secretary of State Kerry, I was sending letters, don't let this turn into Benghazi, get these people out of there. And he didn't, but I had an intel friend teaching a class on, how to use social media. And when he got word, he said, okay, new problem. We got 4 people in the capital of Yemen, and we got to get them to the embassy. And they worked as a problem at using social media, how to get these guys where the rebels were, where to get around them, and they got them safely back. And I was still imploring Kerry, get our people out. It's going to be another Benghazi. Oh, they had everything under control. Then they had to flee. They left stuff that should never been left there. And they left like 20 big Suburbans for the Houthi rebels to use. They keep repeating the same mistakes, whether it's Benghazi, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's there where we are now in Afghanistan getting killed.
So Americans on the ground in Afghanistan knew the risks, wanted to leave with the military if they could, and weren't able to?
Well, they're still not able to.
Well, obviously they want to leave now.
Yeah, it says all they got to do is get to the airport. The airport is surrounded by the Taliban. That's the security. They can't get through the Taliban to get to the airport. And if they try, some of them are 400 miles away. And if they try to get to the airport, odds are they're going to be killed along the way. So it's just pretty ridiculous for this administration to say, just go to the airport and we'll get you out. No, there are people that are going to be left there that want out, but their government has abandoned them.
Oh my gosh.
That's the way it is.